Every day, the teacher took the boy's lunch until his father revealed an incredible surprise. Tommy stared at his half-eaten sandwich, the bread slightly crushed at the bottom of his worn lunchbox. He used to love peanut butter and jelly, but that was before Mr. Wells. Every lunchtime, that strict teacher loomed over him like a storm cloud, stealing Tommy's meager meal with a sharp glare and an unforgiving hand. "This is for your own good, Tommy," he'd say. But Tommy only felt hunger and humiliation. The boy's bright smile couldn't hide his empty stomach as he watched other kids eat, their laughter echoing off the cafeteria walls like a taunting melody. Though his parents worked tirelessly, money was always tight. His mom took on double shifts, and his dad, a proud veteran, often returned from his small job exhausted and worn. Yet, amid the struggle, Tommy wore kindness like a badge. He shared chips with friends, offered bites of his lunch to kids who hadn't eaten, and scratched his head when they teased him, trying to drown the herd in laughter. Beneath that cheerful exterior, the weight of shame and frustration pressed hard against his chest. One day, while watching Mr. Wells snatch his lunch again, Tommy's dad noticed the flicker of despair in his son's eyes. That night, he took a deep breath and broke the silence. "Tommy, we need to talk. You don't have to face this alone." The next afternoon, Mr. Wells found himself facing Tommy's father. The two men stood in Mr. Wells' office, tension thick like a fog. "I'm not here to argue, Mr. Wells, but I need you to understand what your actions are doing to my son." Mr. Wells, with his furrowed brow, didn't falter. But then, Tommy's dad opened up about his own childhood, sharing a past tangled with poverty, relentless teasing, and disheartening encounters with strict teachers. "I know the cycle of misunderstanding, but it can change." In that moment, something shifted. Mr. Wells stared intently as Tommy's dad spoke, memories stirring like shadows in the back of his mind. He suddenly recognized that the boy he had dismissed held his own story of resilience. The whole neighborhood gathered for a community meeting a few days later. The atmosphere buzzed with compassion, tears, and bonding. Families shared stories, laughter mixing with stories of hard times. Tommy, sitting beside his dad, felt the warmth of unity wrap around him like a cozy blanket. Mr. Wells, a hesitant participant, finally admitted his own struggles, the hard edges of his discipline hardening over time. People listened, rapt, as the barriers between a teacher and a parent crumbled. But as hope flickered in the room, a lingering question hovered: would Mr. Wells change? Could he embrace compassion over bitterness? As the crowd dispersed, buzzing with curiosity and resolve, Tommy's heart fluttered with uncertainty, longing for kindness to triumph. Would this be the turning point for him, or was it just another chapter of misunderstanding? The following week felt like an eternity for Tommy. The air in the school was charged with anticipation. Rumors swirled around the cafeteria. Some students claimed Mr. Wells had turned over a new leaf, while others remained skeptical. Tommy didn't know what to believe. Every time he caught sight of the teacher, 1,000 butterflies danced in his stomach. On Monday, Tommy entered the cafeteria, palms sweating and heart racing. He spotted Mr. Wells at the end of the lunch line, clipboard in hand, watching as children grabbed their lunches. Tommy's heart sank. But then, something caught his eye. Mr. Wells wasn't snatching anyone's lunch. Instead, he seemed to be chatting with a group of kids, laughing at their jokes. Was this the same hard-edged teacher who had made him feel so small? Tommy's pulse began to calm. Tommy dared to hope. As he sat down, his friends around him started speculating. "I heard Mr. Wells shared his own lunch story at the community meeting," Lisa whispered, her eyes wide. "Maybe he's different now." A spark of excitement flickered in Tommy's chest. Maybe, just maybe, this would change everything. He took a bite of his sandwich, savoring it as if it was the last bite he would ever get. But by the afternoon, Tommy's optimism was challenged. In science class, Mr. Wells made a mistake when grading a paper. Tommy watched as the teacher berated the student in front of the entire class. The sharp words sliced through the air like a whip. Tommy felt his heart drop. Hadn't they made progress? Hadn't they shifted the atmosphere of fear? He glanced around, there was a familiar tension in the room, and once again, he felt the weight of concern settle on his shoulders. After class, Tommy's friend Jesse approached him, his eyes stormy. Why does he act like that? He can't just change for a day and then go back to being well, him. I thought it was different, Tommy replied, holding back a sigh. I thought he was changing. That evening, Tommy's dad noticed the storm brewing beneath his son's calm exterior. You okay, buddy? He asked, checking the tone in Tommy's voice. I don't know, Dad. I thought Mr. Wells would be better, but he still has those moments, Tommy confessed, fighting back tears. His dad listened, nodding. You've shown so much strength, Tommy. Sometimes change in people takes time, but it sounds like you need to talk to Mr. Wells. You have a voice. Use it. Tommy's mind raced. Could he really confront the man who had made him feel so small for so long? But deep down, he remembered the warmth of the community meeting and the way everyone had come together. He resolved to do it. The next day, with his heart pounding, Tommy approached Mr. Wells after school. The teacher was busy collecting papers, deep in thought. As Tommy's footsteps echoed in the silence, he could feel the anxiety bubbling within him. Mr. Wells, he started, his voice trembling slightly. Can we talk? Mr. Wells looked up, surprised. The moment of truth had arrived. Would Mr. Wells listen, or would their fragile thread of hope snap? Sure, Tommy. What's on your mind? Mr. Wells set his papers down, and the shift in his posture suggested he was ready to hear what Tommy had to say. Tommy took in a deep breath, grounding himself against the sudden flood of nerves. I wanted to talk about what happened in class today. You got really upset with Matthew for that mistake. Mr. Wells frowned slightly, a flicker of defensiveness crossing his face. Matthew should have done better on his paper, he replied, but there was a hint of weariness in his tone. He needs to know when he's not meeting expectations. But he's trying. We all are, Tommy urged, feeling the weight of his words like they hung in the air between them. It just feels like every time you're tough on someone, it makes the classroom feel really tense. Like we're walking on eggshells. I mean, it's hard enough. Mr. Wells' expression softened for a moment, and Tommy thought he saw something change in his eyes. Was it understanding? Or regret? I understand what you're saying, Tommy. I'm trying to create an environment where students learn from their mistakes, but sometimes I forget how those words can hurt, he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck as if trying to massage away the tension of the conversation. Tommy sensed a fracture in the armor Mr. Wells had built around himself. I know you're trying, but some of us just his voice faltered as he struggled to find the right words. Some of us really want to believe you can be better. That we can work together. Silence hung between them like a veil as Mr. Wells processed what Tommy had said. The moments felt endless, and Tommy's heart raced in his chest. He had taken a chance, but would it make any difference? I want to be better too, Mr. Wells finally replied, his voice quieter now, resonating with an unexpected sincerity. I guess I often get lost in what I think is discipline, but I see how it impacts you all. Thank you for telling me. Tommy was surprised. He hadn't expected Mr. Wells to be so open. He felt the warmth of hope creeping back into his chest. So, maybe we could all find a way to communicate better? If something doesn't work, you could ask us what we think? Mr. Wells nodded slowly. I would like that. I'll try to be more aware of how I react. I appreciate your courage, Tommy. It's not easy to speak up. Relief washed over Tommy, and he felt a smile breaking through as if the sun had suddenly peeked out from behind the clouds. Thank you, Mr. Wells. Really. As Tommy turned to leave, a new weight weighed down on him, a mixture of hope and concern. Had he really made a dent in someone so stubborn? Or was this merely a temporary truce? The next day, Tommy strode into school, excitement thrumming through his veins. He was eager to see if Mr. Wells would act on their conversation. But as he approached the classroom, his joy collided with a sight he never expected. Mr. Wells was outside, speaking animatedly with a group of students. But this time, something was off. The laughter had turned into a heated debate, one that rippled through the crowd like a wave of tension. Tommy's stomach knotted. What had happened now? He stood frozen, heart pounding in his chest. Would this be another setback? Or could he step in again, ready to take the risk one more time? The moment hung in the air. Would Tommy's courage lead to a breakthrough, or was it too soon for things to change? Tommy took a cautious step closer, straining to hear the caustic exchanges between his peers and Mr. Wells. One student, Jenna, gestured passionately, her voice rising above the chatter. "You can't just dismiss our views like that. We need to feel safe to express ourselves." Another voice chimed in, a solid boy named Kevin. "Yeah, it's like you care more about standards than us as people." Mr. Wells, usually so controlled, looked momentarily taken aback. He opened his mouth to respond, but the words seemed to falter. Tommy watched the tension curl around the group, anxiety curling in his own stomach like a sick knot. Tommy stepped fully into the fray, his heart racing. "Hey, guys!" he called, lifting his hands as if to halt the storm brewing. "Maybe we can all talk this through together?" The murmurs quieted, and a few heads turned his way, relief mixing with curiosity. Mr. Wells shifted his gaze from the students to Tommy, his expression uncertain. "It's important for us to have this discussion," he admitted, his voice low, but Tommy could sense a spark of hope kindling again. "Then let us make it constructive," Tommy urged, stepping even closer. "You said yesterday, Mr. Wells, that you want us to feel safe. So let us talk. Let us share our thoughts." There was a moment of stillness, and Tommy could feel the weight of expectation resting heavily on him. Would they let him lead this, or would tensions reignite like the flames of an earlier wildfire? Slowly, Mr. Wells nodded. "All right, let us sit down. I want to hear what everyone has to say." As they gathered in a loose circle on the grass, Tommy exhaled in relief. This was a chance, maybe even a turning point. It felt monumental, like standing on the edge of something big. Jenna broke the ice, her voice trembling but determined. "Mr. Wells, we're not trying to undermine you. We just want to be seen, you know." Another voice joined in, echoing the sentiment. "It feels like we're just numbers, and that's tough for all of us." Tommy felt the resonance of their words hitting home. He thought about Mr. Wells, how his tough demeanor was maybe just a mask for his own fears. This could create a bridge, if only they could keep pushing through. Mr. Wells listened intently, nodding along, and a subtle change flickered across his face. "I hear you. And I realize that maybe I've been too strict. It's just that I care. I want you all to succeed, but I have to admit, I'm not always sure how to show it." The honesty hung in the air, softening the rigid edges of the previous confrontation. Hope began to swell, and as the conversation continued, there were moments of laughter, shared stories, and understanding blossoming between students and teacher alike. However, just when Tommy thought this was the beginning of something new, the classroom bell rang, slicing through the moment. The students began to disperse, and for a brief second, Tommy felt a tension return, unease about what would take place next. "Let us keep talking," Jenna called out as they broke apart, keeping a sense of urgency alive. "Yeah," Tommy added, trying to solidify the momentum. "We can make this happen." But as they walked back into the classroom, Tommy couldn't shake the feeling that one small shift wasn't enough. They had opened a door, but would anyone step through? As they settled back into their seats, Tommy couldn't help but wonder if Mr. Wells would remember this moment, if the tentative connection they had established would lead to long-lasting change, or if his old habits would rear their head once again. The question loomed like a shadow, poised to follow them into the next class. Would this be a breakthrough, or just another moment snuffed out by the challenges of the day? The murmurs of the classroom settled into a tense hum as everyone took their seats. Tommy could feel Mr. Wells glancing in their direction, the weight of unspoken words hanging thick in the air. It was like waiting for the storm after a brief moment of calm. Jenna was biting her lip, a frown etched on her face, while Kevin sat back, arms crossed defensively. They were all still buzzing from the conversation outside, holding tightly to the threadbare hope that maybe things could change. Tommy fidgeted in his seat, straining to read Mr. Wells's face, wondering how his teacher would navigate this tide of emotion. The energy crackling in the room seemed to swell and recede with every passing second. Finally, Mr. Wells cleared his throat. "All right, class," he began, the words a shade softer than usual. "I think it's crucial that we reflect on our discussions and how we can build a more open environment." He rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous habit Tommy noted that felt strangely humanizing. Tommy leaned forward, encouraged. "That's a good start. We just want to feel like our voices matter. If we know you're listening, it makes a difference." Mr. Wells nodded, a flicker of something. Could it be gratitude in his eyes? "I appreciate that feedback. I guess I didn't realize how restrictive I could come off. I thought I was preparing you for the future." The conversation twisted, revealing a teacher's intention layered with uncertainty. Jenna's hand shot up. "But our future also means being understood now. It's hard to excel if we feel we're not seen as individuals." The other students murmured in agreement, and Tommy could see the embers of change sparking back to life. The fear that had gripped them earlier fell away like falling leaves in the autumn. Mr. Wells seemed to absorb their words, nodding slowly. "Okay, let's try an experiment," he said. "I want each of you to write down something that makes you feel unheard in this class. It can be as small or as large as you want. Then, we can discuss them." Tommy's heart raced with excitement. It was a bridge to deeper honesty, a chance to show what they all felt. After a few moments of writing, Mr. Wells asked them to share. One by one, they opened up, revealing fears about grades, the pressure to conform, and the struggle of feeling invisible. Tommy listened carefully, surprised at how much they all seemed to echo one another's struggles. When it was his turn, he took a shaky breath. "I guess I just want us to connect, to feel like we're not alone. Sometimes it feels like we're lost in a system, just trying to survive." The room was silent, everyone absorbed in that shared vulnerability. Mr. Wells looked genuinely moved, his stern demeanor cracking just a little bit more. "You're right, Tommy. I can do better. We can all do better." Just then, the classroom door opened with a creak, and in walked the principal, Ms. Ramirez, visibly busy with papers in hand. She paused at the sight of the rapt expressions filling the room. "Mr. Wells, everything all right?" The teacher exchanged an anxious glance with Tommy. Would what they had just created vanish at the mention of authority? Would this moment of openness be crushed under the weight of rules? Tommy held his breath, feeling the stakes rise higher. Ms. Ramirez's presence challenged their fragile connection. Would they be allowed to forge ahead, or would old fears surge up to drown out the budding voices of hope? Everyone watched, frozen in time, as Mr. Wells took a deep breath. What would he say? Would he choose to stand by his students or retreat back into the old habits that had held them captive for so long? Mr. Wells straightened up, meeting Ms. Ramirez's eyes with a sense of determination that Tommy hadn't expected. The air seemed to thicken with anticipation. "Actually, Ms. Ramirez," Mr. Wells began, his voice steady yet gentle, "we've been having a very important discussion about how we can create a more supportive environment here." He paused, glancing at the students, who were all leaning forward, practically holding their breath. Ms. Ramirez's brow furrowed slightly, curiosity replacing her earlier distraction. "I see, and what have you concluded?" Tommy's heart raced. Would Mr. Wells summarize their struggles? Would he take a stand? "We're discussing how each student can feel valued and heard," Mr. Wells replied. "I think it's vital that we work together on this. Hearing them allows us to nurture not just their education but their growth as individuals." Ms. Ramirez's expression softened slightly, her papers momentarily forgotten. "That's promising, but remember, we do have guidelines to follow," she reminded, though her tone was no longer edged with skepticism. Jenna took that moment to speak up. "We get that there are rules, but sometimes the rules feel more important than the people. We need to be ourselves to really learn." The words hung heavy in the air, as if everyone felt the weight of them. Mr. Wells nodded, encouraged by the students' growing confidence. "Then perhaps we find a way to balance those guidelines with understanding how important it is for these students to express their feelings. Is there a process we can adjust?" Ms. Ramirez seemed to consider this, biting the inside of her cheek. Tommy could see the gears turning in her head. The tension in the room intensified with every second that passed. Finally, she sighed, folding her arms. "If we can ensure that this is kept constructive, I'm willing to let you lead these discussions for now. But I expect regular updates." A rush of relief washed over Tommy. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a step in the right direction. "Thank you, Ms. Ramirez," Mr. Wells said, a smile breaking through. It was a real smile, one that conveyed hope rather than just duty. The bell rang, cutting through the moment. The sound felt almost jarring after everything that had just happened. Students began to gather their things, excitement sparkling in the air. "You guys!" Jenna exclaimed, her eyes shining. "This is huge. We really did something." Tommy felt a smile stretch across his face, warmth spreading in his chest. It was small, but it was the first breath of change they had been waiting for. As they filed out of the classroom, Tommy fell into step beside Kevin. "It's a start, right?" he said, his voice full of hope. "Yeah," Kevin agreed, glancing back at Mr. Wells, who was gathering his papers. He looked relieved. But there's a long way to go. Outside, the sun was shining, casting a golden hue over the school grounds. It felt like it was shining just for them, illuminating their path as they walked. Tommy couldn't shake the feeling of excitement welling inside him. What if they really could shift the tide? But then, a shadow loomed in the corner of his mind. What if this was just a momentary change? What if the walls of resistance held firm? That unsettling thought hung there as they walked past the cafeteria, where lunch trays clattered together like the jangling of alarms. "Hey, did you hear about the principal's meeting next week?" Kevin asked suddenly, breaking through Tommy's haze of thought. "No," Tommy responded, curiosity piqued. "What is going on?" "Apparently, they're discussing some major rule changes," Kevin said, his brows knitting together. "I wonder if it has anything to do with us." Tommy felt the weight of possibility settle heavily in his heart. Was the principal's meeting tied to the spark they had ignited? Would they take action, or would it fade like so many conversations had before? The uncertainty lingered thick in the air, fueling a flame of apprehension in Tommy's chest. They needed to prepare. What might come next could change everything. The following day came too quickly for Tommy. The excitement of yesterday lingered in the corners of his mind, but so did the dread. He had found it hard to sleep, tossing and turning, half hoping for a miracle and half fearing the worst. The chatter of students buzzing around him as he made his way to class did little to distract him. As he entered the room, he was greeted by a sight he hadn't prepared for, an enormous poster paper plastered across the whiteboard. It read, "Student Voices Matter," in bold letters, surrounded by colorful doodles and student signatures. Jenna, Kevin, and a few others had clearly been busy while he struggled to find quiet. "What's all this?" Tommy asked, the warmth of camaraderie filling him up. It's our way of kicking things off. Jenna beamed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Mr. Wells said we needed a visual to remind everyone why we're doing this. Tommy looked around at the illustrated smiles and heartfelt messages. It felt powerful. Their voices were finally taking form, somehow concrete against the mundane school walls. Mr. Wells walked in, his expression lighting up at the sight. Wow! You all have really outdone yourselves. The warmth of his approval washed over the students, and Tommy felt pride swell in his chest. Jenna nudged Tommy, her eyes sparkling. This is just the beginning. We want to show everyone that this is important. Tommy couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope ignite inside him. Maybe this was the day things would really start to shift. As they went through the day, he felt buoyed by the students' excitement and energy. They bounced ideas around, discussing how to present their case at the upcoming principals' meeting. Every suggestion seemed to add another layer to their resolve. They were no longer just whispers in the hallways, they were becoming a force. But when lunchtime came, so did Tommy's familiar shadow of apprehension. He shuffled into the cafeteria, his stomach churning. He hadn't forgotten the way his lunch mysteriously vanished ever since that fateful day when he confronted Ms. Ramirez about their voices. "Dude, you okay?" Kevin asked, noticing Tommy's gaze drift away. Suddenly, the all-too-familiar figure of Ms. Ramirez loomed near the lunch line. A part of him wished he could just blend into the wall. He tightened his grip on his tray, suddenly aware of the ticking clock over her head. She was standing there, fingers tapping on the counter, waiting for something, an opportunity, maybe? "Hey, what is going on?" Jenna interrupted his thoughts, aligning her gaze on Tommy. "You look like you've just seen a ghost." "It's just," he hesitated. "Ms. Ramirez is here." With a gentle nudge, Jenna said, "You need to stop worrying about her. We've got this. We're all in it together." Still, the apprehension gnawed at Tommy. He felt the electricity of change in the air but also a heaviness that wouldn't lift. As he took his seat, he watched Ms. Ramirez chatting with another teacher, the sharp flicking of her eyes brushing over him like a cold wave. The laughter around him momentarily hushed, and all he could think about was the principal's meeting. Would they really make it to the table to speak their truth, or would it all crumble before it even began? Just then, a commotion at the entrance of the cafeteria drew his attention. A group of students pushed through, carrying handmade signs and chanting something about Voices United. They hadn't just planned to make a statement, they were here to march. Tommy's heart raced. What would happen next? Would they be heard, or would they face more walls? Suddenly, it felt like everything was about to change, for better or worse. The tension surged in the air, and he couldn't help thinking, was this the moment they would take a stand? Or was it a reckless gamble that could lead to further silence? The loud chanting filled the cafeteria, drowning out the clatter of trays and the whispers of soft conversations. Tommy's heart thundered in his chest as he watched the group of students march forward, their homemade signs bobbing above their heads like flags of rebellion. Each message was a testament to their struggle, a call for recognition that echoed his own hidden fears. Voices United. They shouted, their faces flushed with energy and determination. Tommy's gaze shifted to Jenna, who had jumped to her feet, her eyes sparkling with fire. "We're standing up!" she yelled, joining the chorus as she lifted a vibrant sign that read, "We matter." For a moment, he felt a rush of adrenaline, the thrill of being part of something bigger than himself, something that could push boundaries and create change. But then doubt clouded his mind. What if they were dismissed? What if they faced the wrath of authority? He swallowed hard, his stomach twisting again, reminding him of the very real consequences that came with voicing their truth. "Come on, Tommy. Join us," Kevin called out, breaking into his thoughts. There was urgency in his tone, a twinge of hope that hinted at the potential for success. Tommy hesitated, the pull of fear still holding him in place. As if sensing his reluctance, Jenna turned, her expression softening. "You're not alone. We're all scared, but this is our chance. You care about this, don't you?" Her words cut through his hesitation. He did care. Deeply. He wanted to believe that their voices could mean something, that together they could spark a light in the dark. Taking a breath, Tommy nodded, letting the wave of determination wash over him. "Okay," he said, standing up slowly. As if it were the most natural thing in the world, he found himself moving toward them. One step and then another, until he was part of the throng, lifting his own voice to join the chorus, voices united. The energy surged around him, a tidal wave of solidarity that felt almost intoxicating. For the first time, he felt a surge of belonging, a community fighting not just for themselves but for every student who felt unheard. But as the group neared the front of the cafeteria, he spotted Ms. Ramirez watching, her face hardening with disapproval. The laughter that had filled the air moments ago fell silent, and those who had been cheering began to look around nervously. Tension hung thick like smoke, and Tommy's heart sank. "Stay strong," yelled Kevin, nudging him from behind. In that moment, Tommy remembered his purpose. They weren't just a group of students, they were a movement. Determined to speak up, he pushed through the fear. As they reached the center of the cafeteria, Jenna raised her sign high. "We deserve to be heard," she shouted, and like a wave, the others echoed her. The words hung in the air, powerful and vibrant. Tommy felt a thrill. They were being seen. But just then, Ms. Ramirez stepped forward, her voice cutting through the atmosphere. "This is unacceptable. You all need to back to your seats." The authority in her tone sent a chill through Tommy. Would they really be silenced again? Wait. He found his voice against the tide of fear that threatened to rise. "We have something to say." The cafeteria stood still, tension cracking like a thin sheet of ice beneath their feet. Would this moment be their liberation or their downfall? Tommy's heart raced as he prepared to step out, the eyes of every student around him focused on his next move. Would he find the strength to make their voices ring true? The silence that blanketed the cafeteria felt like a held breath, every eye waiting for what Tommy might say next. Ms. Ramirez's disapproval didn't just threaten them, it loomed over Tommy like a storm cloud, ready to burst. He swallowed hard, feeling the weight of all the eyes on him, but something deep inside echoed louder than his fears. "We're not asking for permission." The words spilled out like a challenge, raw and unfiltered. "We're telling you who we are. We matter, and we deserve to be heard." The ripple of surprise spread through the crowd. Kevin's eyes widened with a mix of pride and shock. Jenna's expression mirrored the feeling of triumph, as though the moment had transformed them all. Tommy felt the stirrings of vitality, an undeniable current flowing between him and his classmates. Ms. Ramirez bristled, her posture rigid, but Tommy continued. Each word felt like a spark, feeding the fire growing inside him. "Every day we're told to sit down and shut up. But we're sick of feeling invisible." His heart raced, the adrenaline coursing through him as the tension shifted. What if this was the moment they broke free? The onlookers began whispering amongst themselves, a collective hum igniting the atmosphere. "Yes. Speak up," someone shouted from the back, emboldening others. In that electrifying instant, Tommy spotted some familiar faces amongst the witnesses, students he rarely spoke to but shared the same silent concerns. Each of them reflected a hidden strength awakening and joining the uprising of voices. Is this what we truly want? He pressed on. To be silenced? To feel like our feelings don't matter? No. He paused, letting the echo of his own defiance gather weight. We are not just kids. We're people with dreams and fears, and we deserve to be seen just like anyone else. His words sparked murmurs of agreement that began to crescendo around him, amplifying into a chorus of support. He felt Jenna's warmth behind him, her energy feeding off his resolve as she fully joined the movement. "Let us do this together," she shouted, her voice piercing through the heaviness. Tommy's heart swelled, bringing them one step closer to what they wanted. The power of community felt palpable, uplifting as they soared past doubt and fear, hand in hand. Yet, as they pressed forward, Ms. Ramirez's frustration bubbled over. "You are disrupting school property. You need to leave, or I will have to call for security." Her command cut deeper than any word, but fueled the determination swelling in him. Would they really let fear win? "No!" Tommy shouted back, feeling something shift in him. "You can't silence us. We're here, standing tall together. We're taking up space." The group chimed in unison, "We matter. We matter." Suddenly, the clattering of chairs erupted beside them as more students stood in solidarity, moving to the front like a tidal wave, each courageous heart joining the choir. Tommy felt a surge of joy. This was unity personified. But even as the solidarity intensified, the doors to the cafeteria swung open. A figure appeared, a familiar face that made Tommy's heart race with anxiety and hope. It was Principal Johnson. "Enough of this," she called, her tone firm yet surprisingly calm. The room fell silent, the ripple of uncertainty washing over them once again. Tommy's breath hitched. Would she support them or shut it all down? The moment of reckoning was here, and Tommy could feel a storm brewing not just in the room, but within himself. Would they find an ally in Principal Johnson, or was their fight just beginning? Principal Johnson stepped confidently into the cafeteria, taking in the scene before her with perceptive eyes. The tension in the room crackled, an electric mix of hope and fear. Tommy stood at the forefront, heart racing, ready to confront whatever came next. "Everyone, please take a step back and let us have a conversation," she said, her voice steady and authoritative. Tommy exchanged a glance with Jenna. Would this be a moment of resolution or another door slammed shut? He took a deep breath, grounding himself. As the students slowly backed off, Tommy felt an odd sense of agency. They were being seen at last. Principal Johnson directed her gaze to Tommy and the others, her brow furrowing with concern. "I respect your passion, but you need to understand there are rules. Rules are there for a reason." Tommy's courage surged, fueled by the support around him. "But those rules shouldn't silence us or make us feel less than human." A chorus of agreement rippled through the group, emboldening him. He pressed forward, "We're just asking to be heard, to feel safe and understood. We want to help shape our own environment." Principal Johnson regarded him, her expression softening as she absorbed his words. "I get that you want change, and that's a valid desire," she began, her voice growing gentler. "But there are proper channels to go through. This isn't how to do it. But this is what we need." Jenna interjected, her voice bright with passion. "Talking is a start, but feeling ignored is what drives us to shout." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, everyone held their breath. Principal Johnson looked at the faces around her, a mixture of determination, fear, and hope reflected back. Finally, she nodded slowly. "Let us try this, then. I want to hear you. Let us set a meeting. I want to understand what you have to say." Tommy's heart raced. Was this really happening? The collective sigh of relief from the students was palpable, a wave of energy washing over them. Principal Johnson continued, "We can discuss how we can create a better school environment. Let us make it meaningful." The room erupted into scattered applause and cheers. For the first time in months, Tommy felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Maybe they really could do this together. "Thank you," Tommy shouted, the joy bubbling over. But he didn't stop there. "Let us keep talking. This is just the beginning. We need to hold them accountable." Jenna chimed in, "You're right. We should form a committee of students to represent our voices, make sure we're part of the discussion moving forward." Principal Johnson nodded, her demeanor transforming from authority to an ally. That sounds like a strong approach. I can help facilitate that. But you'll need to be committed. Change takes work. With their enthusiasm surging, Tommy and the other students sensed they were on the cusp of something transformative. As the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, students filtered out of the cafeteria. But this time, their spirits soared, full of promise and potential. Tommy couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought them here. It had begun with a crushed sandwich and despair, but now they stood on the threshold of a vital change, empowered by their unity and resolve. Walking alongside Jenna and Kevin, Tommy looked into the faces of his friends, all radiant with joy. "We did it!" he exclaimed. "Yeah, we did." Jenna beamed, bouncing on her toes. "I can't believe it. We finally made ourselves heard." Tommy's heart swelled with determination. "And we won. Stop here. We've started a movement, and we're in this together." Their laughter mingled with newfound hope, moving them forward through the hallways. Each step echoed louder than the last, a promise whispered in the air of connection, of compassion, of a community finally coming together. As they emerged into the sunlight, Tommy felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. This was the beginning of a journey, not just a personal one, but a shared community effort. He knew there would be more challenges ahead, but now they had each other. United and brave, together they would continue to change the narrative. One moment at a time. So if you felt inspired by this story of transformation, you need to subscribe now to the channel. Don't wait not even one more second. Show your support and be part of this incredible journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so we can bring you even more life-changing stories. And comment below with your reactions and feelings about this amazing ending. You know we want to hear from you. Lastly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can spread the message that every voice matters.